As a multi-passionate person, you should have at least one journal or two. Okay, maybe three. But seriously, I have 3 journals that I use to help with being a multi-passionate person. And when I say it has gotten rid of all the chaos when it comes to ideas, it really has. And I know 3 seems excessive, but I promise they work. So let's jump into the 3 journals that I use to keep all my projects on track. So the first one is going to be a junk journal. I really love junk journaling just for like sticking random things, stickers that I bought in. I also like to use my travel notebook, but now I'm kind of using them kind of interchangeably. I rarely pull out my travel notebook, but I love using a Moleskine to junk journal. And this can also be like a vision board journal or a mood board book, whatever you want to call it. It does not have to be called junk journaling. I know some people don't like the word junk, so they might use ephemera journaling. But I do different things in here, mostly collages, but if I have a project in mind, I will absolutely put my project in here and just vision board it or mood board it, because that just helps me to figure out what I want to make. So if I'm very much lost in one of my creative projects, I can always refer to this and be like, oh yeah, I did want to make that in yellow. I do need those supplies. I just like to have a good idea of what I'm going to make, what materials I need, and just the general cost of stuff. Like writing that stuff down is very important, and it's cool to always go back and look and see exactly what you need. For instance, let's say I'm sewing up some pants. I need to know what fabric I'm going to use, what thread, what needles, and like what pattern I'm going to use if I'm going to use a pattern. I also need to know, do I have the materials to self-draft a pattern? I need to know that stuff. So it's always cool to document all of that stuff and have it in here. And like I said, I like to use the Moleskine, but you can use whatever type of notebook you want. It can be a cheap one, it can be an expensive one. You don't really have to think too hard about this, because at the end of the day, in a junk journal or ephemera journal, you are just collaging in here and you're just kind of helping yourself brainstorm in a way when it comes to the mood boarding for a project. I always think it's a good idea to mood board things just because you're not confused or frazzled when you're putting things together. Because I promise you, when it comes to the creative projects that you do, it can be all over the place, and it's very important to be organized, even if it is just a hobby. Hobbies are important, y'all. And the next journal that I use to keep all of my projects on track is actually a planner for me, but again, you can use whatever type of notebook you want. And I call this my project planner or project journal. So I like to use the Sterling Ink Common Planner, and I have the A5 Vertical Compact. And like I said, it is a planner, but I use it as a journal. And what I do is I will write down where I am on a project, especially if it's knitting or crochet, because chances are you're not going to finish a knit project or a crochet project in a day. It just depends on the project, of course. With sewing projects, you can, but I like to document everything down. Yarn I purchased, if I bought any more needles, if a needle broke, which one did for me recently, what fabric I'm buying, all of the above. I like to just have that in here so I can go back and see where I am. If I do stop on a project, especially with knitting, I can always go back and see, what row did I stop on? Where is my stitch marker supposed to be at? All the things. With crochet, I don't need to write as much down, but I do like to keep note of like how many granny squares do I need for a certain project, or really just what row I left off on for crochet. So I just like to have those things. So again, I can go back and be like, oh yeah, here's where I left off on. And because I am a multi-passionate, and you most likely are too, you need to be able to keep up with your projects, because you are probably doing more than one at the same time. I know you are. So I like to do that just to keep things on track. And if I'm making something for somebody, I also like to know when I need it by. So I know I'm making a slipover or a pullover for my mom, and I know I need that by March. So this is going to be the month that I'm going to be like needing to hustle. Like, oh yeah, I need to like start really knitting this up and getting it done within the next few weeks. Out of all of these, I definitely suggest a project planner or a project journal. And it does not have to be an actual planner. It can just be a regular notebook once again. I just like the grid in here, the vertical. It's also nice. And last but not least, every multi-passionate person is a little bit scatterbrained, which is why I say you probably might need all these journals. But really, the one that I think is necessary just for any person in general, but especially multi-passionates, is a personal diary. And that is because you are going to need to brain dump very regularly. It does not have to be often, but just regularly. And you don't have to schedule it or anything. But a personal diary is going to be a lifesaver. And you can actually, I have put like all the projects that I want to do in my personal diary, but it can be whatever you want in here. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I will draw in here. Sometimes it'll just be straight up photos of what I made. I just need to dump things in my personal diary. And I say that this is for every type of person out there, because a personal diary is just so good, because sometimes things do not need to be shared in public, on the internet, to friends. Sometimes you just need to keep it to yourself. And obviously a personal diary is just going to help you get all those thoughts out, whether they be negative, positive, or just, a little bit oversharey, But I really do believe that brain dumps are necessary, because if you're not writing out some of those thoughts, especially for a multi-passionate, you will become more scatterbrained. So it's a good way to just have chaos in here. It can be all over the place if you want it to. It doesn't matter. It can be organized, but I like to keep all my chaos in here. So this is my chaotic journal. And I think everybody needs one of these, but like I said, especially multi-passionates. So this personal journal / diary is the Aspinall of London journal, and it has blank pages. I don't think they make a grid one, but I love this. I like the paper. Everything about it is just so pretty. I haven't been using it as often, but I still do use it. Don't get it twisted. But I love to use this for brain dumps, brainstorming. A lot of negative feelings are filled in here. Not very many positive, but I still love to write in here. So like I said, I think everybody needs it. So definitely look into that one if you don't already have a personal diary. But if you're here, you most likely do already. And then I kind of want to add a bonus one as a personal diary. So if you have a daily journal that you may use, I think that's good to have, especially if you're buying a lot of things. So you can kind of use this as a financial tracker, like a spending tracker for your projects. Not necessary, but it is something you can use. This is also like a personal diary for me, but it's mostly like general things. I don't do too much in here. I just kind of like to say what happened in my day. And this is the Hobonichi Cousin Techo, the A6 size. I jot down like any little thing in here, and I kind of reverse plan in here as well. But once I do start doing more projects, I probably will track things financially. But again, not necessary. If you already have something for that, don't even mind that, but I just wanted to include this as a bonus. So these are the 3 planners / journals that I think you need if you are a multi-passionate person. I think it is really good to track your projects and stay on top of them and actually get them finished, because I believe that having these journals, even if it's one or all, I think it helps to execute a project, because you're going to want to fill in the pages if you haven't, finished a project. And most multi-passionates are doing multiple projects at once. So it's really good to just keep them nice and organized. So that's why I believe that you should keep one or all of these. And that is it from me. So thank you so much for watching. And let me know which journal you think you would use the most, and if you would use all 3 of these or not. I will see you in the next one. Bye.